Linda Solomon Wood is the founder and publisher of Canada's National Observer. That's Canada's premier source for news on the politics of climate change in Canada. She recently authored a piece. You can read it at nationalobserver.com, Tragedy of the Commons, Google, Meta, and Canada's Online News Act. Linda joining us now live on this Wednesday morning. Thanks so much for making time for us. If I can ask you, I mean, obviously you can speak with great authority on Canada's National Observer and the business that it is and the perspective that you have, but you've also got a great understanding of the media landscape across the country. You've participated in hearings and forums, and you write all about it. We'll link to your editorial in the show notes here on Facebook and the podcast so people can check it out. But where in your assessment did it start to go sideways? Like, where did the relationship start to sour?
I think that back in 2017, across Canada, news executives were really starting to want to push back, want to draw a line with Facebook and Google, and they saw their businesses really, the business environment getting dire for journalism. And they began to look to the federal government to regulate the social media companies who, in 1 year alone, like 2021, made about $10 billion from online advertising, from Canadian advertising on their platforms. Now, they do not pay taxes in Canada. And so what I started to hear in 2017 at these roundtables that the government was holding for media executives, or that, and that some of them were held by the Public Policy Forum as well. And what I was starting to hear was, help that we need to level the playing field here. Like, our companies are taxed on everything, and you're not taxing these, big social media companies that are based in the U.S., but actually have their business addresses in Ireland. And so they don't pay taxes in Canada, and they don't pay taxes in most countries in the world unless they've been regulated, like they have been in the EU, and now they have been in Australia. And, so what we're seeing here is the outgrowth of really, 8 years, 7, 8 years of efforts by Canadian media companies, including CBC, to get the government's help, and saying, really, the government is now asking social media companies to divert $300 million out of that, those billions of dollars of ad revenue to support Canadian media.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, big tech is telling Ottawa to pound sand, basically. You quote Shoshana Zuboff, the publication "The Age of Surveillance Capitalism: The Fight for a Human Future at the New Frontier of Power." You say that you point out that Zuboff warns that by the time we comprehend the true extent of big tech's demolishment of democratic institutions, big word to use, public safety and the individual privacy, it may be way too late to regain control. Bill C-18 became law in Canada last month. The Liberal government and the tech giants, like you said, basically at a face-off, a standoff. I mean, they're going head-to-head here. It'll require companies like Meta and Google to compensate Canadian media publications for making news content available on their platforms. It would seem to make sense. If you want to use it and profit from it, then you should pay for it.
Ottawa absolutely should not back down. I think they already have given a little ground, and, I wish they hadn't, really, because I think that, I just really want to ask Canadians to consider, where is the line? When do you draw a line? How do you draw a line? How do you get them to pay? It's one thing to think they should, and it's another to actually make them do it. And how do you get them to compensate in a way that seems fair and balanced, and is of a proportion equal to how much they have profited from Canadian content and from, Canadian consumers as well. And, should really taxpayers, be bearing the burden of paying taxes when a mega corporation like Google does not? we adjust to these things, but, there have been like 300 newsrooms that have closed in North America over the last decade at least. And, when I talked about a tragedy of the commons in my piece, what I'm really referring to is, my really strong belief that journalism is absolutely essential to any democracy. That if you don't know what's going on, you cannot make good decisions. You can't protect your freedom. You can't protect your environment. You can't protect the future. I think that we really have to fight for Canadian journalism to remain strong. Otherwise, we're just going to be reading our news through the lens of publications that I love and respect, but I just don't think they're best to cover Canada.